What if the darkest betrayal of your life was also the day your new life began? On the exact day his wife, Clara, took her final breath. Jacob Cromwell stood at an altar, slipping a ring onto the finger of his mistress. He buried one life and began another all before the sun went down. He thought he had gotten away with it. He thought the past was buried. But 5 years later, a ghost from that past finds him in a park, a small boy with his wife's eyes, who looks up at him and calls him Uncle. The air in room 304 of the St. Jude Hospice Center was thick with the scent of antiseptic and lilies that were trying too hard. It was a suffocating sweet smell that Jacob Cromwell would forever associate with failure. He sat by the window, not looking at the bed, but at the immaculate April cherry blossoms dusting the courtyard below. They were vibrant pink and offensively alive. In the bed, Clara Cromwell, née Ashford, was a pale watercolor sketch of the woman he had married. Her fiery red hair, the hair that had first caught his eye at a university law gala, was now a brittle, faded copper, spread thin against the white pillow. She was 34 years old and had been dying for 23 months. Ovarian cancer. A cruel, invisible thief. Jacob, a man whose life was built on aggressive acquisitions and hostile takeovers in the corporate world, could do nothing. He felt useless, and that uselessness had curdled over months into resentment. He checked his watch. 3:15 p.m. He had a 4:30 p.m. conference call he couldn't miss. Jacob, Clara's voice was a dry rustle of leaves. He startled, plastering a look of concerned sorrow on his face as he turned. "I'm here, darling. Right here." He moved to the bed, taking her hand. It was all bone and paper-thin skin. The pain is less today," she whispered, her eyes still a brilliant, piercing blue searching his. "That's wonderful, Clara. That's good." He squeezed her hand, his thumb rubbing a non-existent warmth into her knuckles. "No, Jacob." She tried to wet her lips. "It's not. The nurse, Dr. Patel, they said it means—" "Don't," he cut her off, his voice sharper than he intended. "Don't talk like that. You're a fighter." A small, tired smile touched her lips. "I'm tired of fighting, Jacob. I want you to be happy." Guilt, sharp and hot, lanced through him. "I'm happy if you're here," he lied. We should have had children," she murmured, her gaze drifting toward the window. "I always wanted a little boy with your eyes, or a girl with my hair." This was the old wound, the infertility, the years of failed IVF, the tension, the quiet blaming. It was the crack in their foundation where the rot had set in. "Clara, please, rest. I know you've been distant." Her blue eyes snapped back to his, holding a sudden unnerving clarity. "I'm not blind, Jacob, just sick." His heart stopped. "What are you talking about? Be good," she whispered, her eyelids fluttering. "Just promise me you'll be a good man after." "I am a good man," he said, the defensive words tasting like ash. "Promise me," she insisted, a flicker of the old Clara, the prosecutor who never lost a case. "I promise, Clara, I promise." She seemed to content herself with that. Her breathing softened, and she slipped back into the morphine-hazed sleep that claimed most of her days. Jacob Cromwell stood there for another 10 minutes. He listened to the shallow rasp of her breathing. He looked at the woman who held the last decade of his life. And he felt nothing. just an impatient, vibrating energy. He pulled his hand away, wiped the clammy residue on his trousers, and checked his watch again. 3:40 p.m. He was going to be late. He walked out of room 304, giving a curt nod to the hospice nurse. He didn't look back. He got into his black Mercedes S-Class, the smell of new leather, a welcome antidote to the lilies. He loosened his tie and pulled his phone from his breast pocket. He dialed. "I'm on my way," he said. The voice on the other end was an intoxicating velvet. "Is it over?" "No, not yet," Jacob said, merging into traffic. "But soon. She's fading. I can't sit there and watch it, Serafina. It's draining me." "I know, my darling," cooed Serafina Dubois. "You're a good man. Too good. You've done your duty. Now come home. I'm waiting." "I'll be there in 20, he said. "The reservation at l'Orangerie is for 7 p.m. The suit is already pressed. I'll see you at 4:30. As he drove away from the hospice toward the gleaming downtown condo he shared with his mistress, he didn't feel like a husband. He felt like a man about to be paroled. The call came at 5:02 p.m. Jacob was standing in Serafina's marble-veined bathroom, steam clinging to the mirrors. He had just finished shaving. He was wearing a towel, and the scent of expensive sandalwood soap was sharp in the air. Serafina, already in a silk robe, was painting her toenails a deep vampiric red. She was the opposite of Clara in every conceivable way. Where Clara was sharp edges, legal briefs, and understated elegance, Serafina was all soft curves, fragrant oils, and unapologetic hedonism. Her hair was a cascade of black ink, and her laughter was loud and full. She was life, he told himself. She was what he deserved. His work phone, the one Clara knew about, buzzed on the marble vanity. The caller ID read St. Jude Hospice. He froze. Serafina looked up, her brush poised. "Answer it, darling," she purred. "It's better to know." He picked it up. "This is Jacob Cromwell." "Mr. Cromwell," said the kind, tired voice of the charge nurse. "It's time. Dr. Patel believes it will be in the next few minutes. You should come." Jacob looked at his reflection. His jaw was clean-shaven. His hair was perfectly coiffed. He looked ready for a gala, not a deathbed. I'm in a meeting in the middle of a major negotiation." He lied the words, flowing with sickening ease. I'm on my way. I'll be there as fast as I can." "Mr. Cromwell," the nurse said gently, "I don't think you have as fast as I can. I think you have now." "I understand," Jacob said, his voice flat. He hung up. Serafina stood up, walking over to him. She placed her hands on his bare chest, her red-tipped fingers cool against his skin. "Well, it's time," he said. She studied his face. He felt nothing. No, that wasn't true. He felt a profound, terrible relief, and the guilt of that relief was a physical weight. "Jacob," Serafina said, her voice dropping, becoming practical. "Look at me." He met her dark, assessing eyes. "You've been sitting vigil for 2 years," she said, her voice firm. "You've sat by her side. You've paid for the best doctors, the best hospice. You have done everything. Her dying. It's a release, Jacob. For her. And for you. You going there right now. What will it change? You'll watch her stop breathing, and you will carry that image with you for the rest of your life. Is that what she would want?" She asked me to be a good man," he murmured, remembering her words from just hours before. "And you are," Serafina said, kissing his chin. "You're the best man I know, but your life, our life, has been on hold. We've been hiding. I've been your dirty secret." "No," he said, "not a secret, just private. Jacob, the Justice of the Peace is booked for 600 p.m. Our flight to the Maldives is at 10:00 p.m. This tiny private ceremony, it's just for us. It's a formality before our real life begins. Don't let this ending ruin our beginning." He looked at her. He looked at the phone. He thought of the drive, the antiseptic smell, the rattling breath, and he thought of Serafina in the white, backless dress that was hanging in her closet. He made a decision. A clean break. A surgical cut. "She's already gone," he said as much to himself as to Serafina. "The Clara I knew, she's been gone for a long time." "Exactly," Serafina whispered, kissing him. "Now go. Get dressed. Our future is waiting." At 5:47 p.m., Clara Ashford Cromwell died alone. The nurse held her hand. At 6:15 p.m., in the sterile beige office of a county justice of the peace, Jacob Cromwell and Serafina Dubois were pronounced man and wife. Jacob's hand was steady as he slid the 3-carat platinum diamond ring onto her finger. She had picked it out herself. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the justice said, looking bored. "You may kiss the bride." Jacob leaned in. Serafina's lips were warm, tasting of champagne and ambition. As he kissed her, his work phone buzzed in his pocket. A text message. "Mr. Cromwell, Mrs. Cromwell passed peacefully at 5:47 p.m. Please call us at your convenience to discuss arrangements. Our deepest condolences." He pulled back from the kiss, a small, genuine smile on his face. Serafina saw it, and her own smile brightened. "What is it, darling?" she whispered. "It's over," he said, pulling her close. "It's finally over. We're free." They had dinner at l'Orangerie. Jacob ordered the most expensive bottle of Bordeaux. He made a toast. "To new beginnings," he said, clinking his glass against hers. "To new beginnings," she echoed, her dark eyes shining in the candlelight. That night, as their plane climbed over the Atlantic, Jacob finally turned on his work phone. He listened to a single tearful voicemail from Amelia Clara's younger sister. "Jacob, where are you? Where were you? They called me Jacob. She's gone. She died alone. I was stuck in Chicago. I couldn't get a flight. But you were supposed to be there. How could you? How could you?" Jacob listened to the entire message, his expression unreadable. Then he pressed delete. He signaled the flight attendant. "Another glass of champagne, please." He was by any definition a free man. 5 years pass. To the outside world, Jacob and Serafina Cromwell had the perfect life. Jacob's firm had successfully executed a series of ruthless mergers, making him one of the most powerful and feared names in finance. They lived in a starkly modern 10,000 square foot glass and steel mansion overlooking the Pacific. Serafina had blossomed in her role as the new Mrs. Cromwell. She ran 3 major city charities, was featured on the cover of Opulence magazine, and was famously impeccably dressed. Their home was a fortress of good taste, all white marble, gray suede, and imposing modern art. It was like their first meeting, sterile and impressive. They had a son. Leo. He was 4 years old, a quiet, serious child, with his mother's dark eyes and his father's calculating stare. He was curated just like the house, dressed in miniature cashmere sweaters and driven to an elite preschool by a private nanny. Jacob loved his son, or rather he loved the idea of his son. The heir, the continuation of the Cromwell line. But 5 years on the triumph of that first day had soured. The freedom he had felt on the plane to the Maldives had become its own kind of prison. His new life was a gilded cage, and Serafina was its beautiful, vigilant keeper. He'd found that the passion that had defined their affair had quickly cooled into a transactional, partnership-based marriage. They were a brand, the Cromwells, and the brand had to be protected. The ghost of Clara, however, refused to stay buried. Jacob had nightmares, not of her death, but of her life. He'd dream of her laughing at a law school debate, or of her covered in dirt after planting their first and only garden. He'd wake up in a cold sweat, the smell of lilies in his nose. Serafina noticed. "You were dreaming again, darling," she'd say, her voice devoid of sympathy. "Thinking about her won't bring her back. It's unhealthy." She had systematically erased Clara from his life. Any old photos Jacob had missed were lost by the movers. Clara's sister Amelia had tried to contest a part of the will, a family home on the East Coast, and Serafina's lawyers had crushed her, painting her as a grasping, unstable relative. Jacob had signed the papers, telling himself it was just cleaning up loose ends. He hadn't seen or spoken to Amelia since the funeral, a funeral he had barely attended, arriving late and leaving early, his face a mask of appropriate grief that fooled no one, least of all Amelia. Her eyes had burned with a hatred so pure it had startled him. But that was 5 years ago, a different lifetime. This particular Tuesday in May was bright and warm. Jacob had uncharacteristically cleared his afternoon. Leo's preschool was having a spring fling at the local botanical gardens, and Serafina was in Paris for Fashion Week. "I'll go," Jacob had announced, surprising his nanny and himself. He felt a sudden sharp need to do something normal, to be a father. He stood on the edge of the great lawn, watching 24 privileged children run squealing after a bubble machine. Leo was standing off to the side, methodically picking petals off a daisy. Jacob sighed. "Go play, Leo," Jacob said, nudging him. "I'm counting," Leo replied, not looking up. Jacob left him to it, walking toward a small kiosk to get a coffee. He felt the familiar restlessness, the sense that he was an actor in his own life. The sun was warm on his face, but he felt cold. And that's when he saw him. Across the lawn, near a large ancient oak tree, a woman was spreading out a picnic blanket. She had honey blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. With her was a little boy who looked to be about 5. The boy was laughing a high, delighted shriek as he chased a rogue bubble. He tripped, tumbling onto the grass, and popped right back up, his face split in a grin. Jacob stopped, his coffee forgotten. The boy had red hair, not just red, but a deep, fiery copper. Clara's hair. Jacob's blood turned to ice. It was a coincidence, he told himself. Lots of people have red hair. But he couldn't look away. The woman turned to help the boy, and Jacob felt a jolt of recognition. It was Amelia, Clara's sister. She looked older, her face thinner, etched with a worry he didn't remember. But it was her. And the boy. As he turned, the sun hit his face, and Jacob's breath hitched in his throat. The boy had Clara's eyes. The same brilliant, piercing blue. The same shape. The same tilt at the corners. Jacob was looking at a ghost. He was looking at the child he and Clara were never able to have. Jacob Cromwell was a man who controlled a room by his very presence. He was used to people deferring to him, to his will, imposing itself on reality. But in this moment, he was paralyzed. The world had tilted. He watched as Amelia unpacked a container of sliced apples. The little boy, buzzing with energy, ran in circles around her. "Noah, settle down, sweetie. You'll make yourself dizzy," Amelia called, her voice carrying on the breeze. Noah. The name echoed in Jacob's head. He felt an irresistible pull, a magnetic force he hadn't felt in years. He started walking his expensive Italian loafers, sinking slightly into the soft grass. He didn't have a plan. He just had to get closer. Amelia was looking down, arranging the food. She didn't see him approach. But the boy did. Noah stopped running, his head cocked. He looked at Jacob with an expression of pure, unfiltered curiosity. Jacob stopped a few feet away. The resemblance was devastating. It wasn't just the hair and eyes. It was the sprinkle of freckles across his nose, the exact shape of his chin. It was Clara reborn as a 5-year-old boy. "Hello," Jacob said. His voice sounded rusty. Noah smiled, a gap-toothed, fearless grin. "Hi, my name is Noah. I'm 5. Who are you?" Jacob's heart did a painful, stuttering slam against his ribs. I'm Jacob." "Like the train," Noah giggled. "Noah, what did I tell you about talking to strangers?" Amelia's head snapped up. Her eyes met Jacob's. The color drained from her face. Every ounce of warmth, every hint of a smile vanished, replaced by a cold, visceral shock that quickly hardened into pure, unadulterated hatred. It was the same look from the funeral, magnified by 5 years. "Amelia," Jacob breathed. She scrambled to her feet, moving to put her body between Jacob and the boy. "What are you doing here?" She spat, her voice low and trembling with rage. My son, he's at this event," Jacob stammered, gesturing vaguely toward the lawn. "I saw you. You need to leave," Amelia said. Her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. "Amelia, who is this?" Jacob asked, his eyes locked on Noah, who was now hiding behind Amelia's legs peeking out. "He's my son," she said, her voice like ice. "Your son," Jacob did the math. 5 years. The boy was 5. Clara had been dead for 5 years and 1 month. I didn't know you were married." "There's a lot you don't know, Jacob," she said bitterly. "Now please, go. You are not welcome here." "Mommy, who is he?" Noah's small voice piped up from behind her. Amelia's face contorted in panic. She was trapped. She looked at Jacob's expensive suit, his powerful stance, and then at her son. She couldn't make a scene. "Noah, honey," she said, forcing a brittle, false brightness into her voice. This is an old friend of your Aunt Clara's." She turned back to Jacob, her eyes flashing a clear warning, "Play along, or I scream." "He's beautiful, Amelia," Jacob said, his voice thick. He looks just like her." "Don't," she whispered, a tear of pure fury escaping her eye. "You don't have the right to say her name." "Who is Aunt Clara?" Noah asked. Amelia flinched, as if struck. She stroked his red hair, her back to Jacob. "She was my sister, sweetheart. She's an angel now." "Oh," Noah said, accepting this. He then peeked around Amelia again, his curiosity winning. "Hi, Jacob, like the train." Jacob knelt slowly so as not to spook Amelia further. He looked at this impossible child. "Hi, Noah." "Amelia," Jacob said, his voice pleading. "Please, just talk to me, 5 minutes. We have nothing to talk about, ever." She began to frantically shove the apples and juice boxes back into the picnic basket. "Come on, Noah, we're leaving." "But we just got here," Noah wailed. "I want to see the bubbles." "We'll go to the other park, sweetie. The one with the big slides. Now come on." She grabbed his hand. "Wait." Jacob said, standing up, his voice taking on the command it usually held. "Amelia, stop." She froze. She turned her face a mask of desperation. "What do you want from me, Jacob? You took everything from her. You let her die alone so you could go marry that whore. What more could you possibly want to take?" The words hit him like a physical blow. I just... He looked at Noah. Noah, sensing the tension, looked from his mother's angry face to the tall stranger's pained one. He did something that shattered Jacob Cromwell's carefully constructed world. He let go of Amelia's hand, walked over to Jacob, and patted his expensive trouser leg. "Don't be sad, mister," Noah said. "Mommy gets sad when she talks about Aunt Clara, too." Jacob looked down at the small hand on his leg. He felt a connection, a profound and terrifying pull that he had never even felt for Leo. Amelia let out a choked sob. She snatched Noah back, pulling him against her hip. "Noah, don't," she commanded, her voice breaking. It was nice to meet you, Noah," Jacob said, his throat tight. "You too," Noah said, giving a little wave. "Are you my uncle?" The word hung in the air. Uncle. Amelia's face was white. "No, sweetie, he's not. He's just Mr. Cromwell." She looked at Jacob, her eyes streaming. "Stay away from us, Jacob. I'm warning you, stay away." She turned and practically ran, dragging a confused Noah with her. Jacob stood there, rooted to the spot. The smell of cut grass and coffee filled the air. He watched them until they disappeared behind a grove of magnolia trees. Uncle. The math was impossible. Clara had been dying. They hadn't been intimate in more than a year before her diagnosis. And Amelia. She would never have. But the boy. The boy. Jacob Cromwell's mind, the mind that could dissect a hostile takeover in seconds, was now working with a new, frantic purpose. He saw his own son, Leo, still methodically pulling petals from the daisy. He looked at Leo, and then at the spot where Noah had stood. He pulled out his phone, not the work one, but his real one. He dialed the number of his personal security chief, a man who found problems and made them disappear. "David," Jacob said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I have a job for you. I need you to find every piece of information you can on an Amelia Ashford. And her son, Noah Ashford. I want birth certificates. I want hospital records. I want to know who the father is. And I want it by morning." He hung up. The obsession had begun. Jacob did not sleep. He returned to the glass house on the cliff, his mind a vortex. Leo and the nanny had gone to bed. The house was silent, save for the faint, distant rhythm of the surf. Serafina was in Paris. He was alone with his thoughts. Who was Noah? A coincidence. Impossible. The face was Clara's. Amelia's secret child. With whom? And why did he look so much like Clara? Clara's secret child. Even more impossible. She was in a hospital bed, dying. He paced his home office, the floor-to-ceiling windows, showing him only his own haunted reflection against the blackness of the Pacific. At 4:17 a.m., his secure server pinged. David had delivered. Jacob sat his heart hammering. He opened the encrypted file. Subject: Amelia Rose Ashford. Age 32. Address: 1422. Sycamore St. Apt 3B, a modest rent-controlled apartment across town. Occupation: pediatric nurse, St. Jude Hospital, the same hospital where Clara had been, but in the children's wing. Financials: modest savings, significant student loan debt, no co-signers, no joint accounts. Marital status, single. Subject, Noah Ashford. Age 5. DOB, April 12th. Jacob's blood ran cold. Clara had died April 28th. The boy was born 16 days before she died. Hospital of birth. St. Jude Hospital. Birth certificate. View document. He clicked the link. Child's name. Noah Ashford. Mother's name, Amelia Rose Ashford. Father's name, blank. Father's name, blank. It was a dead end, but it was also a blazing red flag. Jacob was a man of logic. He needed variables. He had none. He pored over the data. Amelia had taken a 6-month leave of absence from the hospital starting 3 months before Noah's birth and ending 3 months after. A standard maternity leave. It all pointed to a simple, sad story. Amelia had a child out of wedlock with a man who abandoned her. But it didn't explain the face. It didn't explain the eyes. Jacob closed his laptop, the frustration gnawing at him. A birth certificate wasn't enough. He needed something else. What had he missed? His mind flashed back to the funeral. Amelia's rage, the will. Clara's sister Amelia had tried to contest a part of the will. He'd dismissed it at the time. He'd let Serafina's lawyers handle it. What had it been about? He went to his physical safe, hidden behind a minimalist abstract painting. He spun the dial and pulled out a thick file labeled Cromwell C. Estate. He hadn't looked at it in 5 years. He found the legal challenge. It wasn't for the East Coast house, as he'd misremembered. It was for something else. A line item, access to contents of Safety Deposit Box 412B, First National Bank. Jacob had assumed it was jewelry. His lawyers had argued that as the sole beneficiary of the estate, all such property was his. The challenge had been dismissed. He had emptied the box himself. It had contained Clara's grandmother's pearls, some early savings bonds, and her law school diploma. He'd had it all appraised and sold. But there was another document stapled to it. A letter from Amelia's lawyer. My client Amelia Ashford does not dispute Mr. Cromwell's claim to the material assets. She is, however, petitioning for access to the box based on her sister's written instructions, specifically concerning deeply personal, non-monetary items she believes are stored therein. What non-monetary items? Jacob's mind was racing. A safety deposit box, a hospital, a birth. He sat bolt upright. IVF, the years of failed treatments, the hormones, the clinics, the harvesting. He and Clara had gone through 3 rounds. The first 2 yielded nothing. The third, just before her diagnosis, had been different. We have 3 viable embryos, Mrs. Cromwell, the doctor had said. Grade A, we can implant 1 now and freeze the other 2. They had implanted 1. It had failed to take. Then Clara got the diagnosis. The cancer was aggressive. The treatment would make her sterile. The embryos were forgotten. We can freeze the other 2. Jacob stared at the black window. 2 frozen embryos. Biologically, they were his. They were Clara's. Oh my God, he whispered. He was a man who acted. He grabbed his keys. It was 4:50 a.m. The sky was turning a faint, sick gray. He didn't drive to Amelia's apartment. He drove to the cryogenic storage facility. He was Jacob Cromwell. The facility's director was woken up and was there in 30 minutes, sputtering apologies. Mr. Cromwell, what can we do for you? Is there a problem with the storage? I want to see my file, Jacob said. Of course. Cromwell, here we are. He pulled up a screen. Account status active. Annual fees paid automatically. Jacob had never even noticed the charge on his Amex. Specimens 2-2 human embryos, status in storage. Jacob felt a wave of dizziness. They were still there. Wait, the director said, scrolling. That's odd. What? Jacob demanded. There's a note here, from 5.5 years ago. A legal inquiry, from your late wife, Ms. Cromwell. What did it say? She was inquiring about the legal process for posthumous donation of genetic material to a designated party. And she signed the release forms. All they needed was your signature. Which she never got, Jacob said. No, the director said. But then, 1 month later, just before she passed, there was another action. Jacob leaned in his blood roaring. A withdrawal, the director said, his eyes wide. Mr. Cromwell, one of the embryos was withdrawn from storage 5 years and 2 months ago. Withdrawn by who? It required my signature, yes, but the legal directive here, it's signed by you. That's impossible, Jacob roared. The director turned the screen, and Jacob's world ended. He saw the electronic signature. It was his. He'd never signed it. He remembered with sudden sickening clarity Serafina. 5 years ago. Darling, your estate lawyers sent over a mountain of paperwork for Clara's hospice care and medical directives. It's all standard. I've flagged the signature pages for you. You must be so tired of it all. He'd been in a hurry. He'd been on his way to meet her. He had sat at his desk and signed a dozen pages without reading them. He'd signed away his own child. But to whom the form would say. Who was the designated recipient? Jacob asked, his voice shaking. The director scrolled down. It's all right here. The release was authorized to a third party as per the attached medical directive and power of attorney. The recipient was Amelia Rose Ashford. It was 6:30 a.m. The sun was up, casting a weak, watery light over the city. Jacob was parked in his Mercedes across the street from 1422 Sycamore St. He'd been sitting there for an hour, the engine silent. He was watching apartment 3B. The lights were on. He was holding 2 truths in his hand. 1. Noah was his son, biologically unequivocally his and Clara's. 2. Amelia was his mother. She had carried him. He reread the documents. Clara, in the last months of her life, while he was whining and dining, Serafina had been executing the most complex secret plan of her life. She had known she was dying. She had known he was cheating. And she had decided to have her baby without him. She had forged his signature, or more likely tricked him into signing. She had designated her sister Amelia as the recipient. Amelia had become the surrogate for her own sister's child. Clara's last will, her final, living revenge. At 7:15 a.m., the door to the apartment building opened. Amelia emerged, holding Noah's hand. He was wearing a small backpack shaped like a dinosaur. She looked exhausted, her eyes red and puffy. She was clearly still terrified from their encounter yesterday. Jacob got out of the car. The sound of his car door slamming shut echoed on the quiet street. Amelia's head snapped toward him. She froze, her terror absolute. "Amelia," he said, walking calmly across the street. "I told you to stay away," she cried, pulling Noah behind her. I'll call the police. I swear to God. Jacob, I'll scream. I know. Jacob said, his voice flat, dead. I know who he is. The blood drained from her face. You don't know anything. He's mine, Jacob said. He's mine and Clara's. Born April 12th. You withdrew the embryo 5 years and 2 months ago. You carried him for her. Amelia looked like he had struck her. She stared at him, her mouth open, the lie dead on her lips. She had no defense. He had the facts. Get away from my son, she whispered, her voice breaking. No, Jacob said. Not anymore. He's my son. He's mine, she shrieked, the word tearing from her throat. I carried him. I gave birth to him. I'm the one who's been up with him every night, who's held him when he's sick. I am his mother. You are nothing. You're his aunt, Jacob corrected, his voice cold. And his surrogate. But I am his father. Mommy. Noah's little voice trembled. What's wrong? Why are you crying? Who is he? Amelia knelt her hands on Noah's shoulders, her back to Jacob. It's okay, baby. It's okay. This man, he's just confused. I am not confused, Jacob said, stepping closer. Tell him the truth, or I will. Amelia stood up, spinning to face him, her eyes blazing with a righteous fire he hadn't seen since Clara's in a courtroom. The truth, she hissed. You want to talk about the truth, Jacob? You think you've uncovered some secret, you know nothing. You walk up here in your $100,000 car and your bespoke suit, and you think you can lay claim to him, to her son. Our son, Jacob said. No, her son. She did this for her, not for you. She knew what you were. She knew you were with Serafina. She knew you were just waiting for her to die. That's not true. It is true I was there, Jacob. For 2 years, I was the one who flew in every weekend. I was the one who held the basin when she was vomiting from the chemo. I was the one who read to her when the morphine made her eyes blur. Where were you in conference calls, in late-night negotiations? She was screaming now. A window opened in the apartment above. You want the truth? Amelia continued, her voice dropping to a raw, ragged whisper. Clara didn't just know you were cheating. She knew who. Serafina wasn't a secret. She used to visit. Your mistress had the audacity to come to the hospice pretending to be Clara's friend. Jacob staggered. What number Serafina never... She did. She'd bring flowers. Lilies. Clara hated lilies. She'd sit there and talk about her new, exciting life, and how important it was to let go of things that are holding you back. She was poisoning her Jacob, telling her to her face to just die already. No, Clara would have told me. She tried. And you told her she was confused and paranoid from the medication. You took that vulture's side. You abandoned her. Jacob couldn't breathe. He remembered the conversations. Serafina stopped by. She's very familiar. And his reply, she's just being nice, Clara. You're not yourself. And this plan? Amelia gestured to Noah, who was now crying silently. This was her escape. Her one good thing. She made me promise. She made me vow on her deathbed, the deathbed you weren't at, that I would raise him. That I would be his mother. And that I would never let you or that creature you married get your hands on him. She wiped her tears, her face hardening. So yes, Jacob. He's biologically yours. But he will never be your son. You lost that right. You burned it to the ground the day you left her to die alone. Jacob looked at the small, crying boy. His son. The living embodiment of his wife's love, and the ultimate monument to his own betrayal. I'm his father, Jacob said, his voice hollow. I want him. Then you'll have to fight me. Amelia said, picking Noah up. And I am Clara's sister. I am not as nice as she was. She turned and walked, almost running down the street. Jacob stood on the pavement. He had won. He had the truth. And he had, in the very same moment, lost everything. The confrontation on Sycamore Street had not been a fight. It had been an execution. Jacob had returned to the glass and steel mansion on the cliff, but the house was no longer his home. It was a mausoleum. He was a ghost walking through the monument to his own ambition, and every reflective surface showed him the face of a man he despised. He didn't shower. He didn't change his suit. He just went to his office, the one with the panoramic floor-to-ceiling view of the Black Pacific, and he sat in the dark. He waited. The hours ticked by the silence of the house, broken only by the distant rhythmic crash of the surf. He had built his life on control, on aggressive action. Now, he was utterly, passively broken. He was waiting for the final pillar of his fraudulent life to come home. At 7:42 p.m., the silent, automated gates of the compound hissed open. Headlights swept across the lawn. The purr of a high-end European engine died in the motor court. The front door, a 12-foot slab of brushed steel and glass, opened and closed. "Jacob, darling, you're home." Seraphina's voice, bright and musical, echoed in the marble foyer. It was a jarring, profane sound in the tomb. "The staff is gone. Why is the house so dark, Jacob?" The click-clack of her heels on the limestone floor was sharp, impatient. She appeared in the doorway of his office, silhouetted against the hall light. She was a vision of expensive, curated perfection, a cream-colored Chanel travel suit, her dark hair immaculate, her skin glowing from a week in Paris. She was carrying 3 large, glossy white shopping bags from the Rue Cambon. "My God, Jacob!" she laughed, flipping on the lights. The office was instantly illuminated, sterile, and cold. "What are you doing sitting in the dark like a vampire? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I have," he said. His voice was a dry rasp. She stopped the smile, faltering her instincts, picking up the shift in the atmosphere. She dropped her bags. "What's wrong with you? You look awful." "I met him," Jacob said, his voice flat, devoid of life. "Met who?" she asked, her tone shifting from concern to annoyance. "That new board prospect, did the deal fall through? I met Clara's son." Seraphina's meticulously curated face went slack. It was a sudden, ugly collapse of composure. What did you say? Clara's son?" he repeated, standing up slowly. He felt like an old man. "And mine. He's 5 years old. His name is Noah. He has her hair. He has her eyes." He laid it all out. The embryos, the cryogenic storage, the signature she had him sign, the surrogacy, Amelia. He spoke in a dead monotone, reciting the facts of his own damnation. He watched her as he spoke. He watched the shock, which lasted only a second, instantly curdle into a familiar cold calculation. Her mind wasn't processing grief or betrayal. It was processing damage. It was triaging a crisis. When he finished, she was silent for a full 10 seconds. Then she let out a short, sharp, disbelieving laugh. "Her sister!" Seraphina scoffed a sneer, twisting her beautiful mouth. My God, how desperate, how pathetic, that she would use her own sister like a broodmare. It's grotesque. "Is that all you have to say?" Jacob asked, a low, dangerous rumble starting in his chest. "What is there to say?" she said, shrugging, already moving into problem-solving mode. She picked up her purse, pulling out a slim gold cigarette case. It's a complication, a financial one. That woman Amelia, she's after money. It's the most obvious low-rent blackmail attempt in history. We'll give her a payout, a large one, whatever she wants. She signs a non-disclosure agreement. She signs away all paternal rights, and we never see her or the boy again. It's clean. He's my son, Serafina, Jacob said, his voice dangerously quiet. My firstborn son. No. Serafina snapped, her mask of perfection finally cracking, revealing the raw, vicious ambition beneath. Leo is your son, our son. The one who lives here, the one who is your legal heir. This thing, this relic from a dead woman, is a legal landmine, a threat to our family. You will not let this derail us, Jacob. I have worked too hard. We have worked too hard. You worked too hard, he repeated. The rage was building, now hot and clean, burning away the numbness. Tell me about your work, Serafina. Tell me about your visits to the hospice. The blood drained from her face. It was the same look of pure, trapped panic he had seen on Amelia's just hours before. The look of the guilty. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered, her hand trembling as she tried to light her cigarette. Don't lie to me, he roared, slamming his hand on the desk, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Amelia told me. The lilies. You knew she hated them. You knew she was allergic. You sat there with my dying wife and told her to let go. I was being supportive, Serafina shrieked, dropping the unlit cigarette. She was in pain. She was delirious. She didn't know what she was saying. She knew what you were saying. You went there to poison her, to tell her to her face, to just die already so you could have her husband. I did not, Serafina screamed back, her face contorted. She was already dying. It was a fact. I just told her that it was okay to stop fighting, that you would be taken care of, that I would take care of you. She was holding you hostage with her sickness. Jacob. Can't you see that I didn't do it for me? I did it for us. I liberated you. The admission hung in the sterile air. I liberated you. Jacob stared at her. The final horrifying piece of the puzzle slotted into place. He hadn't just been negligent. He hadn't just been an adulterer. He had been a co-conspirator. You murdered her, he whispered, the realization sucking the air from his lungs. It wasn't a crime of passion. It was a cold, patient psychological murder. Not with a gun, with words, with lilies. You sat by her bed and you whispered her into her grave. That is absurd, Serafina sneered, trying to regain her footing. And you can't prove a thing. It's the word of a bitter, unstable nurse against mine. I don't need to, Jacob said, his voice hollow. She died alone. And I married you. On the same day. That's all the proof I need. That's all the proof I need. He looked at his own hands, as if seeing them for the first time. You were the poison, Serafina. And I was the man who held the door open for you. So what? She spat, her fear turning to venom. What are you going to do, Jacob? Go to the police, tell everyone you'll destroy yourself. You think that low-rent nurse and her bastard child will welcome you. You are the man who abandoned them all. You are just as guilty as I am. You are stuck with me, Jacob. We are the same. She was right. He knew it. He had wanted Clara to die. He had willed it every time he'd looked at his watch in that hospice room. And Serafina had just been the tool to make it happen. Get out, he said. What? She laughed, a high, brittle sound. Get out of my house. This is my house, she screamed. My life, my son. You do this, Jacob, you'll never see Leo again. I'll ruin you. It is my name, my money, and my sin, Jacob said, walking past her into the foyer. He pulled open the massive steel door. And I'm done. I'm done with all of it. I'm done with you." The legal battle was the ugliest the city had seen in decades. It was a three-ring circus of depravity, and Jacob was the clown at the center. It was Cromwell versus Cromwell for divorce, and Cromwell v. Ashford for paternity and custody. Seraphina, true to her word, fought with a savagery that stunned even Jacob's hardened lawyers. She didn't just want to win, she wanted to annihilate him. She gave a tearful, exclusive interview painting herself as the devoted wife, blindsided by her husband's sudden psychotic obsession with his dead wife's unstable sister. She leaked to the press that Jacob was trying to steal his sister-in-law's child. Headlines screamed, "Tycoon's ghost baby scandal," "Deathbed betrayal," "Wife dies, mistress weds same day." Amelia's lawyers, in response, brought out the hospice records, the nurses' logs, the documented visits from Seraphina Dubois, the timeline of Clara's death and Jacob's wedding. It was a public crucifixion. Jacob Cromwell was ruined. His firm's board, facing a shareholder revolt, invoked the morals clause in his contract and ousted him. His name was stripped from the letterhead. His friends and business partners crossed the street to avoid him. He was a pariah. The climax came not in a press conference, but in the sterile, silent chambers of a family court judge. It was a closed-door custody hearing. Jacob sat at one table, his expensive lawyer beside him. Across the room sat Amelia holding her lawyer's hand, her face pale but resolute. "Mr. Cromwell," the judge. A woman with tired, discerning eyes said, looking at him over her glasses. "I have read the briefs. I have heard the testimony. I have frankly never seen a case of such profound and calculated moral failure in my 20 years on this bench." Jacob sat silent. There was nothing to say. "You are biologically the father of the child Noah Ashford. That is not in dispute. But fatherhood, Mr. Cromwell, is not a biological default. It is an act. It is a choice. It is a responsibility. And at every single turn, you have failed to meet it." The judge looked at Amelia. "Then we have Miss Ashford, a woman who, out of love for her sister, took on the burden of pregnancy. A woman who has, by all accounts, provided an exceptional, loving, and stable home for this child. A woman who, I might add, did all of this while working full-time as a pediatric nurse and grieving her only sister." She turned her gaze back to Jacob. It was withering. "You are asking me to remove this boy from the only mother he has ever known, from the only parent he has ever known. You wish to place him in what? Your care. A man who, by his own admission, married his mistress on the very day his wife died. A man whose ex-wife, I see, has already filed for a restraining order and sole custody of your other son, Leo, citing your moral and psychological instability." "I've changed," Jacob whispered the words, tasting like ash. I've lost everything. Noah! He's all I have left of her." "He is not a relic, Mr. Cromwell. He is not a consolation prize for the life you burned to the ground," the judge said, her voice sharp as glass. "He is a child, and he is not all you have left. You have the consequences of your actions. Those are yours to keep." The ruling was final. Amelia Rose Ashford was granted sole legal and physical custody. Her petition to terminate Jacob Cromwell's parental rights was granted. He was denied all visitation, all contact. He was, in the eyes of the law, a stranger. 1 year later. The man who stood under the ancient oak tree in the botanical gardens was a ghost. He was no longer Jacob Cromwell the Titan. He was just Jacob. Gaunt, his $1,000 suit replaced by nondescript trousers and a worn coat, he watched. The glass mansion was gone, sold to pay Serafina and the lawyers. Leo was in Dubai. Across the lawn, on the same patch of grass, Amelia was pushing a swing. Noah, now 6, was pumping his legs, his red hair a bright, defiant flame in the afternoon sun. "Higher, Mommy." His voice, high and clear, carried on the breeze. "Push me to the sky. I'm trying, sweetheart." Amelia laughed. It was a real laugh, light and free. She looked up, and her eyes met Jacob's across the field. He expected the hatred, the fear, the anger, but there was nothing. She just stopped pushing her hand resting on Noah's back. Her expression was not one of fear, but of a deep, profound sadness. Perhaps even pity. She knew, as he did, that he was utterly, completely defeated. Noah, feeling the swing stop, jumped off. He spun around and saw the man by the tree. He remembered. He smiled that same gap-toothed, fearless grin. His face, Clara's face, was full of nothing but sunshine. He waved. "Hi, mister." Jacob's throat closed. His heart, which he thought had turned to stone, cracked. He wanted with a desperation that was physical to run to him, to kneel, to tell him, "I am your father. I am so sorry." But he remembered Clara's last whispered plea. "Promise me you'll be a good man." He had failed her in life. He had failed her in death. But perhaps in this one final agonizing moment, he could honor her. A good man wouldn't poison this boy's life, this happy, bright life, with his own darkness. A good man would protect him. He had to protect him from the only person left to hurt him himself. Jacob Cromwell did not wave back. He did not speak. He did not approach. He simply gave a small, defeated nod to the woman he had wronged, and the son he would never know. He put his hands deep into his pockets, turned his back on the laughter, and walked away. He was and would forever be just a stranger in the park. Jacob Cromwell built his empire on betrayal, but the foundation was rotten. He got the wife, the money, and the life he wanted, but he built it on the grave of the woman who truly loved him. And from that grave, Clara had her final say. This story is a brutal reminder that our actions have consequences that outlive us. The choices we make in the dark always come to the light. Jacob lost everything: his wife, his mistress, and 2 sons. He is now truly a man with nothing. What did you think of Jacob's fate? Was it justice, or was it just tragic? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please like this video and share it with someone who appreciates real-life drama. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories you won't want to miss. Thank you for listening.